What's up, everybody? Screech here with another one from RobWords. That's hard to say. Reason why I'm touching base on this one is because I learned a runic alphabet when I was in middle school. I loved it. It took about a week for me to like really master. I say master, but like I could read it, I could write it, just as fluently as the English language, which is my native tongue. So I'm curious as to his take on this because he's saying we should go back to writing in these, and that's honestly something that could be a really good thing.
English looks like this, but it used to look like this.
Oop, back up.
English looks like this, but it used to look like this.
Now we're gonna go normal speed. So yeah, like the K I don't recognize, and the S is kind of off. The T, most people don't. I've never really seen the T change. It always confused me why the E looks like an M and the M looks like a weird thing. Because if you can, yes, this thing right here, I believe that's actually an M. I believe that's a G. That might be a D. I don't remember that one. And I've never seen this one. I don't remember that one. And this one's an R. So.
These ancient letters are called runes, and I think this. These ancient letters.
Oh, okay, so H. I'm not sure what that is. Sometimes that's a P. That's also been a G before, which is weird. That's the K I'm used to, but that may not be a K here. R. That's similar to the S he had before. That's usually a Y that I've seen. That is not a B. Yeah, I honestly can't place this one. It's been a while. That might be an A. See if this is a Y, this would be ST. That's usually an E. So I have no idea what that would be.
Called runes, and I think they might be better. Allow me to explain in another RobWords.
Of course.
Okay, so runes are the alphabet that was used to write down the English language before we started using the alphabet we use now, the alphabet of the Romans.
Yep.
An alphabet that is utterly inadequate, lacking letters for some common sounds in our language while having multiple letters for others. It is an alphabet meant for writing out Latin.
So, numquam ego te tradam nec te descendam. I think tradam is traditional. Descendam, descendant, or to descend, meaning to go under. I took a small Latin course. I failed it, but I took a beginning Latin course. I couldn't get the conjugation right. That's besides the point. Yeah, in some of the runic alphabets that I have seen and like recently gone back to look at, like there's a word called aegis, Aegis, which means shield typically. I believe in all forms. But the AE is Englified, Americified. Like, I don't know how to explain that part. But but they break it into two separate letters, whereas it's an A with an E, like they're connected, they're conjoined at the middle point. And like there's some runic alphabets that have that. There are also some runic alphabets that do have a C character instead of just a K character.
English. Whereas this set of characters here is specifically designed to efficiently represent the sounds of the English language, or more accurately, Old English as it was back then, over 1,000 years ago. But
yeah, Norse mythology. God of War Ragnarok used old runes to say Ragnarok around the edge, and that's how I knew what it was the moment they dropped the trailer, was because I could read all but like one letter because it was a different alphabet, a different version of the alphabet.
I think it could be used for the English we speak.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so
Today.
For the, so that's a TH. EGLISH. That's all typical. Okay, so that's the G is the double X this time. That's a W. Okay. SP. EAK. Okay, yeah, I had to think how to spell speak. So that would be the EA, the Aegis. Because like it's pronounced Aegis. So like sharing that character makes sense in the word speak. And then today, okay, so T, typical. O, okay. That's the D. A, and that's the Y. Okay, that's interesting.
Now, before you dismiss this as just another one of Rob's silly alphabetical schemes, just hang on a moment, because I am in good company in exploring this idea. This is a beautiful copy of The Hobbit, the masterpiece by...
Okay, well, okay, so up here, that's obviously Hobbit. So the bees, the bee-looking characters represent the bee, Hobbit, or because I believe that was an O earlier. That was a the, so TH, Hobbit, or there and back again. No. I mean, that was the name of it. There and Back Again, A Hobbit's Tale by Bilbo Baggins. THERE, that makes sense there. Okay, so the line with the slash, that was a D earlier. Okay, so can't see that. That must be again, because see, the X is G instead of the double X from earlier. But that's a B, that's an E. I couldn't tell you what that is. An I, no. I don't know. The Hobbit, or There and Back Again. Okay, yeah. AGAIN. Okay.
author and linguist J.R.R. Tolkien. His fascination with Old English and the language of the Vikings, Old Norse, is interwoven throughout this.
Norse mythology, that's a big thing about. I enjoy that a lot. It's probably my favorite mythology of them all, with Christianity being at the bottom. I said what I said. Get in the comments.
Book and the
Hashtag Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Lord of the Rings trilogy, not just in the names of people and places in the text, but also in the illustrations drawn by the man himself. They are littered with runes. Look at the ones on this map. This is the written form of Dwarvish, but it's actually just Anglo-Saxon runes.
Yep.
And they don't spell out some mystical message in a made-up or long-dead language. This is modern English. Stand by the grey stone when the thrush knocks, and the setting sun, with the last light of Durin's day, will shine upon the keyhole. So it can be done. Runes work for the language we speak today. Tolkien proved it.
Yeah.
But before we decide if runic writing...
In some of the versions of the books, you'll see the traditional there, and then above it, below it, next to it somewhere, it'll be like the actual translated version. That way you can read it. Or there'll be like an appendices in the back of one of the books, and it will have all those passages written out, or it'll give you the alphabet so you can go back and translate it.
Is right for the modern age. There is a whole lot that we need to understand first about how runes were used in the past and how they've been more recently abused.
Yeah.
But let's start with where runes came from and why they look the way they look. To do that, we have to go to Scandinavia and way back in time to even before the age of the Vikings, although we will get round to them, I promise. The oldest surviving runes date from around the 2nd century, and they're concentrated around southern Scandinavia, so that is runologists' best guess at where they were invented. However, it might just be that more runic inscriptions from there survived than elsewhere because of a tradition in the area of burying things in bogs. Bogs are a great way of preserving objects that would have otherwise perished elsewhere. The style of rune from back then...
I mean, that makes sense. The bog is always wet, so anything that would need to stay moist so it doesn't die would be a good place to do it.
Is the one you're most likely to have come across. This is the runic alphabet used from at least the 2nd century to the 7th century, and it's known...
So either that's a caret for a C next to what might be a G, which makes no sense. R, A, that's a TH. So I couldn't tell you. I'm used to this being an A. This we just established as of the. A-T-H. Something R. I think that's O. Oh, this is confusing because that's S, which you could have an S after a Y. Oh, okay. So either that's an S or that's an S. That's interesting. That was an N earlier. That's an I. I've seen single H. So, but that makes no sense because H and N. That was a B, E. Ooh, translate it for me.
As the elder or older Futhark. In much the way that our word alphabet comes from the Greek names of the first 2 letters of our alphabet, alpha and beta, the Futhark is named for the sounds made by its first 6 characters. F, U, Th, A, R, K.
Okay. So the C doubles as a K. Okay. And that's a U. Okay. That was still a TH. I wasn't sure if that was an A or an O. Okay. And the double verticals is an F. Got it. I think.
The rest of these 24 runes.
Okay. So the P is a W. The X is a G. H was H. That was still an N. I. Okay. I couldn't remember J. Okay. So that's how they chose to do the I in Elder Futhark. That's a Z. Got it. To be fair, I was trying to make a word out of this. It's just the alphabet.
Each make their own sound too. You know, one of the things I find amazing looking at the runes next to their Roman alphabet equivalents is that so many of them match up. Look at the B letter and the R letter and the H and the S, there are too many of these pairings to be coincidental.
Nope.
And that's because
Well, yeah, but
it
nope.
isn't coincidental. The fact that this alphabet from the northern reaches of Europe has symbols in common with writing systems from the continent's southern limits is a reminder of how much more connected the world was 2,000 years ago than we often think of it as being, or at least than I think of it as being anyway. These alphabets were in sufficient contact with each other to influence one another. Of course, the runes look like funky, pointy, stylized versions of their Latin equivalents because the Elder Futhark is composed entirely with straight lines. Why is that? Well, the answer is simple, because
Chisel.
it makes these characters easier to carve, because that's really the only way in which they were used.
Yep.
The Scandinavians of this period are not big writers. Epic storytellers, sure, but not fans of putting pen to paper, or rather quill to vellum. But what they did do was inscribe things. They would carve, scrape, or bash these symbols into objects made of wood,
Stone.
metal, or stone, like this incredible memorial stone said to bear Norway's oldest last will and testament that just blew my mind when I visited Oslo's historical museum. It's from around 400 AD.
That's cool. I would say the best way to like get a good reading off a stone would be to like get paper or negative paper, whatever it's called, where you can rub across it and you're going to get the etchings. Like, you know, when you were a kid and you used to take the quarter and put it over the paper and then scribble all over the pencil real hard so you would see the outline.
These runes are also used to mark ownership of property or to claim credit for handiwork. On this replica of a 5th century drinking horn, it says, Ek Llawagastis Hortias Horna Tawido. I, Llawagastis, son of Holt, made the horn. Or something along those lines. It's written in Proto-Norse, the precursor to Old Norse. Runes are also used to label
I'm impressed he could pronounce that.
things. Combs have been found that just say comb on them.
Looks like a beard comb.
And they're used to decorate weaponry and jewelry, like this coin-like disc called a bactiate that just has the word ale inscribed onto it. I love it. I want it. I want it.
That was good. Cringe,
And
but
then I
good.
also have to mention magic, although I'm not going to dwell on it because so far as I can see, there isn't a huge amount of evidence of runes being used for mystical purposes at the time that we're talking about. It is primarily a writing system. However, the Roman historian Tacitus, who wrote a lot about his encounters with Germanic tribes, wrote in the 1st century AD about a curious divination ritual that he observed, in which he said villagers would break off the branch of a fruit tree and slice it into strips. They mark these by certain signs and throw them, as random chance would have it, onto a white cloth. Then a state priest prays to the gods and, gazing to the heavens, picks up 3 separate strips and reads their meaning from the marks scored on them.
Okay, so that's kind of like old school casting bones and stuff like that. Not dominoes. Because there would be bones with certain letters read on them, and you would like throw 3 or 4 or 5 I've seen, and depending on which ones are on top would determine the readings. You would say that the modern day version is tarot, which, fun fact, you can do with a deck of cards, regular playing cards.
It's thought those fortune-telling marks might well have been runes. Now, one of the motivations behind this video is to sort of reclaim runes, because without a doubt, particularly over the past century, they've been abused. They've been adopted by far-right groups all over the world, most notably the Nazis.
Okay, so I watched a video the other day. The Nazis were not far right. They were also not far left. If anything, they were center, which is horrifying when you come to understand it. But that's because, granted, he sounds British, so for them, that actually might be far right. But here in the States, things that are far right and far left don't match up to European standards, and it's also like a whole century difference. Maybe not a century, but like there's definitely a generational difference of. I mean, fuck, the World War was like 50, 60 years ago. My history's a little rough. I want to say it was in the 40s and 50s. Uh, but yeah, at least here, as far as the states go, like half of their policies were left, half of their policies were right. That's as political as this is going to get.
Based upon ridiculous, manufactured ideas about what they mean. And I'm going to get into all of that later because it's
The one isn't even a rune that he's talking about. It's from like ancient Tibet, from my understanding.
important. You may have seen that just recently a far-right party won a state election here in Germany for the first time since the end of the Second World War. But your understanding of why that happened may well have been influenced by the specific outlet that gives you your news. However, with
Yeah,
ground news,
this is a
you
problem.
get the full picture.
Yeah, even here in the States, it's bad. Like you can clearly see, like if you're not in politics at all, like you're not far left, far right, whatever, um, and like you stay out of the news, and then like something major pops up, and then you see all the, like you can just tell from the news article, from the headlines, there is clear bias towards certain aspects, truths or lies, whatever they may be, and it's bad. Like it's really bad.
On that story alone, it's pulled together over 500 sources from around the world and across the political spectrum, allowing us to compare the coverage. For example, you can see some right-leaning websites blaming left-leaning members of Germany's governing coalition for the rise of the far right, saying citizens have had enough, whereas outlets on the left stress what it all means for Germany's minorities, calling it a punch to the country. Now, I've worked with Ground News for about a year now because I think what they do is important. Plus, I find their interest pages, like the ones for Germany, the UK, and the US that I use, make it really easy to stay on top of the stories that matter to me. It can do the same for you. Use my special link, ground.news/RobWords, or scan this QR code to get 40%.
Un momento, por favor. Oh. Use that barcode to get 40% off unlimited access.
Off unlimited access like me, and stay fully informed with Ground News. Thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this video.
There you go.
So far we've just looked at the Elder Futhark, but it's with a later incarnation
Yeah, I
of
think
the
there's
runic
two
alphabet
more
that,
versions.
from an English speaker's perspective, things start to get really interesting. From the 7th century onwards, in Britain, a new runic alphabet is starting to be used, a tweaked and extended version of the Elder Futhark, designed to better suit the language of the Anglo-Saxons who'd been living there for
This
a
is
couple
the
of hundred
version
years
that,
by this point.
this is what it was
That
labeled as,
language
that I
was what
learned.
we now call Old English, and the new alphabet was the Futhark. Like the Elder Futhark, the Futhark was named after the first 6 characters, but in this adapted version of the alphabet, they were no longer the same. The Germanic dialects in Britain and also in Frisia on the
Okay, so Futhorc, obviously. This is where it's going to get a little confusing. I've never seen a Y like that. That's weird. Here's the AE I was talking about in Aegis, which I can't think of a single word. Okay, so that's NG. Got it. The double X is NG, whereas the single X is just G. I don't see a single situation where you're not going to be using the Aegis E over, I guess, an EA, like Aegis, reach, break. Okay, break, the word break. I'll shut up.
continent where the Futhark was also being used were different to other dialects. English has always been a bit of a pain in the arse. So, for example, to take into account Old English's weird vowel system, 2 new vowel runes were added. Anyway, it's this Anglo-Frisian Futhark, these Anglo-Saxon runes that Tolkien used for Dwarvish, and that I think we could use today. Okay, so how is this better than what we've currently got? Well, all right. Number 1, it has this guy, a single letter representing what we currently spell out with 2 th. This rune is called thorn, and I have lauded it many times on this channel because it actually survived the transition to the Latin alphabet and continued to be used
Huh.
in English until as recently as the 14th century. Indeed, it's still used in the Icelandic alphabet today, something that brought me endless geeky excitement while I was there recently.
That's cool.
English, like Icelandic,
It's the simple things. Like when simple things make people happy, that's great.
needs this letter more than any other European language. And that is why I am hardcore thorn.
I like it.
Reason number 2 why this alphabet is better is this rune called win. It makes the w sound without resorting to the bodge that we currently have, which is literally using a double U or double V. This one
Yeah.
also survived into Middle English until the printing press killed it off. I think we need it back. That is why I am also for the win. Reason number 3 why the Futhorc is better than our current
Okay. Something tells me it's the back of the jacket.
alphabet is this letter, which represents the ng sound, something we currently write with an N and a G. But when writing, we're using those two letters together all of the time. Why not save space and time with just one letter?
I agree.
Reason number 4 is that
Oh.
Futhorc's 9 vowel characters are much better equipped to represent the 20-odd vowel sounds in English than the pathetic 6 that we're currently having to get by with. And number 5,
I mean,
the Futhorc
compounds.
only has one k letter.
Thank you.
Instead,
I also believe we could get away with removing the Z. Just make it an S with like a umlaut or a dot on it or an accent of some sort.
our current 3, which let's face it, is ridiculous. Honestly, I could go on. For example, a further delightful aspect of the Futhorc is that every letter has a name, and that name isn't just a noise like F or L or E. It's a full word with a meaning, charming meanings like thorn, as I already mentioned,
Yeah.
but also oak and ash and yew, like feor, which
There are 2 that he's got question marks on. I already don't remember what this one is. Was it P? And I believe, oh no, that's the Y. That's right, because I said I've never seen a Y like that. But I don't see Aegis up here either.
but also oak and ash and yew, like feor, which means wealth, and win, which means joy, and also this one that's called gift. And not only do these names bring these letters to life, but they also tell you
How
how
they
to
sound.
pronounce them. They all start with the sound that the letter makes, well, except
Here?
for 2, which are sounds that couldn't appear at the start of words in Anglo-Saxon, like ung. We know about the names of the runes because of poems from back then
Okay.
that listed them, or in the case of this one, give a series of riddles, each one leading to the name of a rune. So the names are charming, it has a better set of letters, and it looks kick-ass. But does the Futhorc work? Are these runes fit for purpose, fit for everyday use? It's a fair question because so far we've only heard of them being used for the odd carving here or there. But elsewhere and during the same time period, runes were being used much more broadly, and until as recently as the 18th century in some places. For more on that, let's cross to the Nordics and to me on holiday there last week. Rob. Thanks, future me. Yes, welcome to Oslo, the capital of Norway. We should talk about the use of runes here in Scandinavia because it was much more extensive than it ever was in England to represent Old English, where in England it was mainly used to mark objects to show ownership, craftsmanship, or for a dedication. Scandinavian inscriptions could be a lot longer and could cover a whole range of other purposes too. We partially know this because of an amazing discovery that was made here in Norway, actually in Bergen though, not here in Oslo,
Okay.
back in 1955. A fire ripped through the city's beautiful waterfront.
Oh,
but
no.
though it was a disaster, it led to the most significant runic find of the 20th century. 670 pieces of wood
Holy shit.
carved with runes, runes from the so-called younger Futharks, which are the later simplified versions of the elder Futhark that we talked about already. It's actually the versions that were used by the Vikings. And these hundreds of objects show just how mundane, just how day-to-day the use of runes could be. There's a massive online database of all the runic inscriptions ever found in
Oh,
Scandinavia, and you can
that's
find all
cool.
the inscriptions from the Bergen fire there. And they include simple little things like a simple prayer. There's ones that just say Ave Maria on them. There are
That's
declarations
weird.
of love. And there's also undoubtedly my absolute favorite one, which is an apparent scolding of someone who has spent too long down the pub. It was found in the ruins of a tavern. And it says, Geether says, you should go home.
Yeah.
Now that's funny enough, right? Someone being told to go home. But what I find extra funny is that there is an accompanying inscription, clearly carved by a different hand, that is completely incomprehensible.
What?
It's thought that it's probably the reply from whoever was being told to come home. It would appear that they were so far gone that they couldn't inscribe a decent reply.
Nice.
So though it doesn't seem like runes were really used day to day in England for Old English, there is a precedent for them being the daily means of communication here in Scandinavia. Interesting.
Not
Back to
really.
you, future Rob. So there we have it. You've put on weight. So there we have it.
You're an asshole.
Runes can be used as a day-to-day means of communication. So what's stopping us? Other than the enormous faff of having to replace every existing text with a runic equivalent and also having to relearn to read. Well,
It's not
it's
that
perhaps
hard.
that thing I mentioned earlier, the way in which runes have been misused and therefore arguably tainted by extremist groups.
You
Most
showed
notably
an
the
example.
Nazis, who used them in their iconography. And
So yeah, the SS looks fine. One's just an asterisk. What are we talking about? And you could maybe argue the
even
bottom
as their
one.
most notorious emblem. I want to talk about this and the subsequent use by
And I
other
disagree with the
political
swastika one.
extremists, because
That's a bad
the
argument.
more light you shine on it, the more ridiculous it becomes, and the more you realize that fascists have no right to take ownership of a heritage that people from all over Europe and beyond share. The Nazi fascination with runes is born out of something called the Völkisch movement, a movement in 19th century Germany and Austria based around the idea of a common Germanic identity. Völkisch
Okay.
activity could be as benign as, going on a hike with friends who share your love of the Bavarian countryside. But there are also more extreme ideas based around the myth of being descended from an ancient superior race called the Aryans, a race that supposedly possessed wisdom that has since been lost. And then in 1908, a superstitiously minded man called Guido von List from Austria published a book called Das Geheimnis der Runen, The Secret of Runes. In it, he set out his belief that runes held the key to this ancient Aryan wisdom. But not just any runes.
But who are the
runes
Aryans?
of an as yet undocumented ancient Futhark that had been revealed specifically and only to him during a period of temporary blindness.
So he was the Germanic Mormon. He was Joseph Smith with the tablet and the Dakota Rock or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to besmirch a religion if you watch this. This is just my understanding of it. I've gotten like a stand-up comedian, a little bit of South Park, and that's about it for my Mormon knowledge.
List's spurious Futhark looked most like the younger Futhark used by the Vikings, but with names for the runes that were closer to the Anglo-Saxon ones. His writing popularized the idea that these runes were ancient holy symbols, charged with wisdom in their shapes, their names, and their sounds. And it is this superstitious belief that was behind the Nazis' use of runes. For example, their use in the logo of their
Such bullshit.
paramilitary organization, the SS. Those are two S runes, if you like. And they've been used not just because of the organization's name, the Schutzstaffel, but because the senior Nazi Heinrich Himmler was a superstitious man who believed in all the Völkisch rune nonsense. He believed what Liszt had written about that rune being an historic symbol for victory, which it never was. Its Anglo-Saxon name, Sigel, bore no relation to the German word for
Huh.
victory, Sieg, as Liszt and Himmler appear to have believed. Sigel meant sun. And the names and meanings of other runes were similarly distorted by the Nazis and continue to be now by other groups. I'm not going to show any of the modern fascist logos using runes because I don't want to give them the time of day. But what I will
Smart.
do is show you the final rune of Liszt's pseudo Futhark, the one he believed held the key to the greatest mystery of the Aryo-Germans, the union of the human and the divine. A rune that doesn't appear in any of the other actual runic alphabets. This one, simultaneously tainting not only runes, but also a near global symbol of good health.
Okay,
To talk
so he
about
did
modern
reference it at least.
usage of runes and to only talk about neo-Nazis is to do a great disservice to other groups who still use and revere them. Religious groups like modern-day pagans who place great symbolic meaning in
Yeah,
the shapes and names
they
of
do.
runes, but aren't using them as an excuse to hate and to abuse other people.
Dungeons and
I'm not in the
Dragons
best position to
players.
tell you precisely what these groups believe in, but there are plenty of places on the internet and on this very website where they'll tell you themselves. Oh, and also, you probably see a rune every time you take out your phone.
Ah,
The
the Bluetooth
Bluetooth
symbol.
symbol is a combined rune made up of the symbols for H and B to give the initials of Harald Bluetooth, a Viking king famed for bringing multiple tribes together. He knew how to establish a good connection. But anyway, what I've been focusing on in this video is what all the historians
That's not even him making a joke. That's like legit, like history.
I've read have said was the primary use of runes, and that was as a system of writing, a system that I think we should take another look at. Still not convinced? I'll leave a link to a rune keyboard and a Latin alphabet to runic alphabet converter below. Have a play around with them. But if I've already won you over, why not consider buying one of these t-shirts? They're available at robwords.com/shop, but I'll leave a link down below. While you're down there, make sure you take advantage of that exclusive Ground News deal and then watch this video next. I'll catch you in the next thing.
I might watch it.
Take care.
Not going to react, but I might watch it. Please go give RobWords a shout out. You know, like the video, the description will be linked in the comment below. The original video will be linked in the description below, as always. Again, shout out to RobWords. I didn't know that there was actually like some 60s mustache man lore with runes. That was new to me, so that was interesting. I still disagree with the swastika, but he showed me otherwise. And at least he did reference the other place it comes from and how it like got ruined. But yeah, I do believe he's onto something. I think we should bring back like the Aegis E, the TH for the, you know, and the other ones, and just start simple. Like, I don't know how you would do OU because apparently that has 9 different pronunciations, and I can only think of 2. Which that's in another video. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Put a video you want to see in the comments below, and I'll take a look at it, and maybe you'll see it go live on the channel one day. Until then, I will catch y'all in the next one. Bye-bye!